So there's a moment early in chapter 1 of my book where my protagonist, Cyrus, jumps off the spectators tier of an arena mid-tournament and threatens to kill anyone who lays another hand on the girl bleeding in the sand behind her. That girl is Reela. She's not a love interest, she's not a mentor, she's not a chosen one prophecy character. She's the trembling, scared half to death best friend who couldn't win a fight if her life depended on it. And in that scene, it kind of does. I want to talk about why Reela is one of my favorite characters I've ever written. Hi, welcome back. If you're new here, my name's Ben. I write science fiction fantasy, and Against the Cosmic Fade is the first book in a series called the Vesperon series. Today, I want to do something a little different. Instead of talking about my protagonist, I want to spend 10 minutes with a side character, because honestly, Reela is the character I get the most messages about, and I think there is a reason for that. So let me set the stage a little. Against the Cosmic Fade takes place on Vesperon, a planet ruled by an entity called the Oracle. The Oracle uses warrior monks as their executive force to keep the population in line, and every few years the women of this society, the Renda, go through something called the degradation. A piece of their personality is stripped away, a trait their assigned partner picks for them, then another, and then another, until eventually there's nothing left. Cyrus, my protagonist, doesn't hate this in the beginning necessarily. That's the thing. She believes in it, she's a fighter, she's loud, she's a true believer in the system, and she thinks the degradation is the most important thing a Renda can go through. It's only later, when it starts coming for her, that the cracks start showing. But Cyrus is frankly exhausting to be around in those early chapters. She's brash, she's violent, and she's a zealot at the end of the day. She's hard to root for if you don't have something soft anchoring her to the world. And that's where Reela comes in. Reela is, and I do mean this with love of course, kind of a disaster. In her first real scene at the yearly tournament, she's getting publicly humiliated by other Renda before the matches even start. They mock her, they tell her to get on her knees, and Reela just stands there, head down, because Reela doesn't fight. Then she's called into the arena. The book describes her as trembling like a flame in the wind. She falls, she gets up, she falls again, crowd laughs, and that's when Cyrus jumps off the spectators tier and breaks every rule of the tournament to protect her. Now, if you read a lot of fantasy or sci-fi, you've seen this setup before. The clumsy friend, the one who exists so that the protagonist can rescue her, and 9 times out of 10, that character stays in that box for the entire book. But there is a different version of this archetype that I love, the one where the character who looks completely useless turns out to be the most important person in the story. Think of Neville Longbottom, bumbling, forgetful, scared of his own shadow for like 4 books straight, and then he's the one who actually pulls the sword of Gryffindor out of the sorting hat and kills the last Horcrux. Or Samwise Gamgee, who spends most of Lord of the Rings getting pushed around and underestimated, and who ends up being the only reason Frodo makes it to Mount Doom at all. The character everyone writes off who quietly becomes the spine of the whole thing. So that's the lane Reela lives in, and I want to walk you through how she gets there. There's a scene a few chapters in where Cyrus walks up to Dr. Orvix's lab. Orvix is a kind of quirky mentor figure, a healer in the capital city of Raviel, and Cyrus stops at the window because she hears voices inside. And Reela is there, and Reela is talking. Now, I want to be clear. Up until this point, Cyrus has known Reela her entire life. They grew up together. Neither of them knows their birth parents. That's actually one of the things that has bonded them as kids. Cyrus assumes she knows Reela completely. The shy one, the one who's always in her room, the one who tinkers with electronics, the friend who needs her. And then Cyrus stands at that window and listens to Reela tell Orvix she's planning to take the medicine exam, which is basically a paramedic exam on Vesperon, and that would be next month. She also says that she wants to help people, that she's going to prove she can do it, even though her degradation has already started, even though every external pressure says she shouldn't. And then Reela says, "I want to help people. Trust me. I'll make it work." And Cyrus is standing outside that window absolutely floored, because Reela has never told her any of this. Not the ambition, not the studying, not that she's been quietly preparing for an entire career, while everyone, including Cyrus, was busy treating her like she was just completely fragile. And the line that hit me the hardest when I was writing it was Cyrus's reaction. She doesn't feel proud, she feels betrayed. She thinks, so much for being best friends. And that's the moment the friendship breaks open. Not because of a fight, not because of a love triangle, but because Cyrus realizes she spent years protecting a girl she actually doesn't know. A love interest can't really do this for a story because a love interest is, by some genre convention, someone the protagonist is learning. The romance arc is built around discovery from the start, but a best friend, in my opinion, is someone the protagonist is already supposed to know. And when that assumption shatters, it cuts in a way romance can't replicate. I want to talk for a second about everything pressing down on Reela that Cyrus can't see. So Reela has two older brothers, Salix and Threx. Both of them are willing to die for her. And I want to flag this because Cyrus doesn't have that. Cyrus doesn't have anyone who would die for her. She built herself from nothing. But here's the cruel twist of Reela's life. She has brothers who would die for her, and she has a partner, Emil, who genuinely doesn't care if she lives. He's a skilled warrior, but he's barely home. The Oracle assigns these partnerships, and Reela got handed someone who treats her as an inconvenience. And then there's Threx, her eldest brother. He found Reela as a baby in the dark forest. There's this strange backstory where he just walks out of the forest one day with an infant girl and claims, without explanation, that it's his sister. And he loves her, but, Threx is a traditionalist. He thinks Reela should be doing her duty as a Renda, bearing children, going through the 4 stages of degradation properly. He thinks that her studying with Orvex is a waste of time. Threx is a whole story by himself, by the way. There's a reason why he's the way he is, and there's a reason why he resents what he resents. If you'd be interested in a video about Threx and his origin, drop a comment below. I would love to do one. So, Reela is carrying a dying mind, a useless partner, a brother who loves her but doesn't believe in her, and an ambition she has to hide from her own best friend. And she's hiding it, all of it, smiling, tinkering in her room, letting Cyrus protect her in the arena, letting everyone underestimate her, until she can't anymore. So here's the question I really want to answer. Why a best friend? Why not just give Cyrus a love interest and call it a day? There is romance in the book, it shows up later. There's more of it in book 2. By the way, quick plug, subscribe if you want updates on book 2. I'm currently editing the second draft and making steady progress. About to start posting teasers in the next months. But here's the thing, I've been thinking about this a lot while I was writing. I'm going to be completely honest with you for a second. I personally wish I had a friend like Reela growing up, because most of my best friends, and I put that in air quotes, ended up going south one way or another. Honestly, over the past few years, I've gotten more genuine support from strangers online than I have from my own friends or family. But that's a story for another video. But I think part of why I wrote Reela the way I did is because I was writing the kind of friendship I always wanted and didn't really get. And I really think that bled into what Reela does for the story. Romance in fiction is mostly built around want. The love interest is someone the protagonist is moving toward. Tension, desire, resolution, and that's beautiful. I love a good romance. But friendship, the real kind, the kind that lasts, is something quieter. It's about being known, about someone watching you become a stranger to yourself and choosing to stay anyway. That's the entire arc of Reela and Cyrus. Two people who think they know each other, finding out they don't, and choosing to stick around. When Cyrus finally confronts Reela later in the book, after a major event where things go horribly wrong, where the location of a secret place gets revealed and someone they both love almost dies, what we get isn't a fight scene. It's not betrayal in the romance novel sense. It's two friends standing across from each other, finally able to be honest. And Reela, for the first time in the entire book, doesn't have to stand in Cyrus's shadow. She gets to be angry, she gets to be wrong, she gets to be free. I personally think that romance couldn't have given me that scene, because that scene only works between two people who've already shared a whole life together. There's one more thing Reela does that I don't think a love interest could. The first part of Against the Cosmic Fade is about women watching themselves disappear, piece by piece, trait by trait, memory by memory. And in a story like that, the most powerful thing you can give your protagonist isn't a romantic partner. It's someone who remembers her, someone who was there before, someone who can say, you used to laugh like this, or you used to hate that, when she can't remember anymore. Of course, if you've read the book, you know that Reela doesn't get a chance to do that because of the events that unfold. But Reela is that for Cyrus, and honestly, I think every Cyrus needs a Reela. So yeah, that's why I gave my protagonist a best friend, not a sidekick, not a tag-along, a real one with her own ambitions, her own grief, her own quiet rebellions you don't see until chapter 20-something, someone who looks useless in chapter 1, but ends up being the whole spine of the story. Thanks for hanging out with me today. If you want to read Against the Cosmic Fade, the link is in the description. If you want a whole video on Threx, let me know in the comments. And if you've ever had a friendship that surprised you the way Reela surprises Cyrus, or if you've had the opposite, a friendship that didn't quite go the distance, I would genuinely love to hear about it down below. I'll see you in the next one.